The medical scanner hummed with an alien frequency that made Amy Reed's teeth ache. She lay still on the examination table while 3 different species of doctors argued over her test, results in languages that sounded like grinding metals and whistling winds. The translation device in her ears struggled to keep up with their rapid exchanges, feeding her fragments of concern and confusion. Dr. Thale, the lead Corvan physician, finally turned his 4 eyes toward her. His blue-scaled face showed what she had learned to recognize as deep worry among his people. The other doctors, a crystalline Zentari and a slug-like mollusk, moved closer to the holographic display showing her cellular structure in painful detail. "Commander Reed," Dr. Thale began, his voice carrying the weight of bad news, "we have completed our analysis of your condition." The hologram rotated slowly, showing dark patches spreading through what should have been healthy human tissue. "You have contracted the quantum plague." Amy had heard whispers about the plague during her time at the Joint Research Station. Entire colonies had gone silent. Rescue ships found nothing but empty cities and the lingering traces of something that ate life itself from the inside out. She watched the dark spots pulse in the projection of her own body and felt strangely calm. "How long do I have?" she asked, sitting up despite the protests of various monitoring cables attached to her arms and chest. The 3 doctors exchanged glances that needed no translation. Dr. Kess, the Zentari researcher, spoke first. Her crystal body chimed softly as she moved. "The plague affects each species differently, Commander. Our people crystallize completely within days. The Corvan immune system simply shuts down. The mollusks experience neural fragmentation." But humans," Dr. Thale continued, "your biology is unlike anything we have studied. Your immune system fights in ways our models cannot predict. It attacks the plague, then attacks itself, then adapts and tries new approaches. The chaos is extraordinary." Amy waited for the actual answer. She had learned that alien doctors liked to explain context before delivering the blow. It was probably meant to be kind, but she preferred directness. "Our combined medical knowledge gives you a 2% chance of survival," Dr. Thale finally said. "The plague will likely kill you within 2 to 3 weeks. 2%. Amy rolled the number around in her mind like a smooth stone. She had faced worse odds during the Battle of Kepler Station, though admittedly those had involved enemy ships rather than her own cells turning traitor. The doctors watched her face carefully, probably expecting tears or anger or the kind of emotional breakdown that made sense when someone received a death sentence. Instead, Amy smiled. The expression seemed to disturb all 3 doctors, who stepped back slightly from her bed. 2%, she repeated, swinging her legs over the side of the examination table. "That means I have 98% of my time to figure out what to do with the rest." Dr. Mollix, the slug-like physician, oozed forward with what might have been confusion. "Commander, perhaps our translation devices are malfunctioning. You seem to misunderstand the severity of your situation." "I understand perfectly," Amy said, standing up and beginning to disconnect the monitoring equipment. "You're telling me I'm probably going to die. What I'm hearing is that I have a small window of time to make that death count for something useful." The medical bay fell silent. Except for the steady beeping of equipment, Amy could see the doctors processing her response, their alien minds, trying to understand a reaction that made no sense according to any psychological profile they might have studied. "Commander," Dr. Thale said carefully, "most patients in your situation would want to contact their families, arrange their affairs, perhaps seek spiritual comfort. Are you certain you understand what we have told you?" Amy finished removing the last of the sensor cables and looked around the room at the 3 beings who had just sentenced her to death. They meant well, she knew. They were good doctors doing their best with an impossible situation. But they were thinking like their own species would think. "Doctor, has anyone ever survived the quantum plague?" she asked. "No," Dr. Kess replied immediately. "0 survivors across all known species. The plague has a perfect kill rate." "Then you've never had a human with the plague before?" "Well, no." "But then your statistics are incomplete." Amy interrupted. You're basing your models on species that follow predictable patterns. Corvans shut down systematically. Zentari crystallize in ordered structures. Mollusks fragment along neural pathways. But humans? She walked to the medical display and studied. The image of her own infected cells. We're chaos engines. We adapt, we improvise, we refuse to follow the rules. Dr. Thales' translator clicked rapidly as he tried to process her words. Commander, your unpredictability is precisely why the plague is so dangerous to your species. Your immune system's chaotic response is accelerating the infection. Amy turned back to face the three doctors, her smile widening. Exactly. Which means while my body tears itself apart, it's also doing things your models can't predict. Every impossible adaptation, every cellular rebellion, every mutation that shouldn't work but does anyway. She paused, letting the idea settle in their minds. I want to weaponize that chaos. The medical bay erupted in a cacophony of alien objections. Dr. Mollix gurgled protests while Dr. Kess chimed in crystalline discord. Dr. Thales' four eyes blinked in rapid succession, a sign of extreme agitation among his people. Amy waited for the noise to die down, then continued in the same calm tone she had used to address her crew during combat situations. You gave me a 2% chance to live. I'm giving you a 100% chance to learn something that might save the next billion people who face this plague. She looked each doctor in the eye, or eye equivalent. The question is whether you're brave enough to help me weaponize my own death. The silence that followed was different from before. It was the silence of minds changing direction, of impossible ideas taking root in careful scientific thinking. Amy could see the exact moment when each doctor realized she wasn't asking them to save her life. She was asking them to help her make her death useful. The research station's main laboratory buzzed with activity as dozens of alien scientists worked around the clock. Amy sat in the center of it all, connected to more monitoring equipment than she had ever seen in one place. Tubes drew samples of her blood every hour while scanners tracked the progress of the plague through her system. She had become less patient and more experimental subject, but the transition felt natural somehow. 3 days had passed since her diagnosis, and the dark veins under her skin had spread like ink in water. Her hands shook slightly when she reached for things, and she had developed a persistent cough that worried the medical team more than it worried her. The alien doctors moved around her with practiced efficiency, but she could see the fascination in their movements. She was doing things that their textbooks said were impossible. Dr. Velk, the Zentari researcher who had joined the team, studied the latest cellular scans with obvious confusion. His crystalline body rang like wind chimes. When he moved, a sound that Amy had grown to associate with deep thinking among his people. The human immune response continues to evolve, he announced to the assembled research team. Every 6 hours, her cellular structure generates completely new antibody configurations. It should not be possible. Her body is essentially experimenting on itself in real time. Amy looked up from the datapad she had been studying. Even reading had become difficult as the plague affected her vision, but she refused to let the scientists work without her input. That's because you're thinking like Zentari would think, she said, her voice slightly hoarse from the cough. Your people create perfect crystalline responses, efficient and stable, but humans are biological anarchists. We throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. The research team had grown to include representatives from 12 different species, each bringing their own medical expertise to the problem. Amy had insisted on understanding every aspect of their work, turning herself into both subject and researcher. It was exhausting, but she had learned long ago that exhaustion was just another obstacle to overcome. Dr. Nix, an insectoid researcher from the hive worlds, approached with a tablet displaying the latest blood analysis. His compound eyes reflected the holographic data as he spoke. Commander, your body is producing substances we have never encountered before. Some appear to have limited effectiveness against the plague, but the metabolic cost is enormous. Amy nodded, studying the chemical formulas that danced across the screen. My body is burning itself as fuel to create weapons it doesn't even know how to use properly, but that's the point. Each failure teaches it something new, and humans learn fast when we're desperate. The plague continued its march through her system, but Amy had noticed something the doctors hadn't mentioned yet. The rate of progression wasn't constant. Sometimes it slowed down, sometimes it changed direction entirely. Her body was fighting back in ways that confused even her own immune system. Dr. Thale, she called to the Corvan physician, who was analyzing tissue samples at a nearby station. Show me the comparison charts again. All species side by side. The holographic display expanded to show how the quantum plague affected different biological systems. Covan neural pathways dimmed in orderly sequence. Zentari crystalline matrices fractured along predictable stress points. Mollusk consciousness fragmented in measurable patterns. And then there was the human chart, which looked like someone had fed data through a randomizer. Every other species follows rules, Amy observed, pointing at the organized patterns of decline. Their bodies recognize the plague and respond according to their evolutionary programming. But look at mine. She gestured at the chaotic swirl of data representing her own condition. My immune system can't figure out what the plague is, so it's trying everything at once. Dr. Kess approached from her analysis station, her crystalline form chiming softly. Commander, your body's chaotic response is what makes the plague so dangerous to humans. The lack of organized resistance is allowing faster spread. Amy smiled, an expression that still seemed to unnerve most of the alien researchers. You're half right. The chaos is dangerous to me, but it's also dangerous to the plague. Look at Sector 7 in my nervous system. She highlighted a section of the brain scan where the dark infection seemed to be retreating. The research team gathered around the display, studying the anomalous readings. In one small area of Amy's brain, the plague wasn't just stopped, it was being actively destroyed by something her body had created. What did you do differently there? Dr. Velk asked, his crystalline body ringing with excitement. Nothing, Amy replied. That's the point. I didn't direct my immune system to try anything specific in that area. It just decided to experiment with a completely insane approach that happened to work. She turned to address the broader team. I need you to isolate whatever compound my body created in that region and figure out how to mass produce it. Doctor. Thale's 4 eyes blinked rapidly as he processed the implications. Commander, even if we can isolate the compound, reproducing the exact conditions that created it might require a dying human as a biological laboratory. Amy interrupted. Yes, I know. That's what I'm offering you. I've got maybe 2 weeks left according to your projections. Use them. Document every impossible thing my body does. Synthesize every crazy compound it creates, and figure out how to turn human biological chaos into a weapon against this plague. The laboratory fell quiet except for the humming of equipment and the soft sounds of alien breathing. Amy could see the wheels turning in dozens of different types of minds, each processing the same revolutionary idea from their own species. Perspective? You're asking us to study your death in real time, Dr. Nix said finally. Amy nodded. I'm asking you to make my death inconvenient for the thing that's killing me. Humans are very good at being inconvenient, especially when we're dying. The plague is about to learn that the hard way. Amy's world had shrunk to the confines of a specialized medical chair that resembled something between a throne and a torture device. Dozens of cables snaked from her body to monitoring stations operated by the most brilliant minds in the galaxy. She had lost 15 pounds in the past week, and her skin had taken on a grayish tint that made the alien doctors whisper among themselves in concerned tones. The research station had been transformed into something unprecedented, a living laboratory, where death itself was being dissected and analyzed. Scientists from 37 different species worked in rotating shifts around her, documenting every cellular change, every impossible adaptation, every moment of her body's chaotic war against the quantum plague. Compound designation Chaos 7 is showing remarkable properties, Dr. Wren announced from her analysis station. The young aquatic researcher had emerged as one of the most insightful members of the team, perhaps because her species thought in fluid patterns rather than rigid structures. It appears to confuse the plague's quantum signature by mimicking its molecular behavior, then suddenly shifting to attack mode. Amy managed a weak laugh that turned into a coughing fit. When she recovered, she looked at the holographic display, showing her blood chemistry. My body is essentially playing dead until the plague gets close, then sucker punching it at the molecular level. Classic human military strategy translated to cellular warfare. The past 2 weeks had been a revelation for the galactic medical community. Amy's body had produced 23 distinct novel compounds, demonstrated 15 different cellular defense mechanisms, and generated biological responses that violated half the known laws of immunology. Each day brought new impossibilities that somehow worked despite having no right to exist. Dr. Thale approached with the morning's test results, his scaled face showing a mixture of wonder and worry. Commander, your neural patterns are beginning to destabilize. The plague is affecting your cognitive functions. Amy nodded slowly, feeling the truth of his words and the strange fuzziness that had begun clouding her thoughts. How long before? I can't direct the research anymore? Perhaps 3 days, Dr. Thale replied honestly, maybe less. Then we need to accelerate everything. Amy turned to address the assembled research team, her voice hoarse but determined. I want continuous sampling from now on. Every hour, every change, every adaptation. When my brain goes, I need you to have everything documented. Dr. Velks? Crystalline body chimed urgently as he studied the latest cellular scans. Commander, your body is producing something entirely new in response to neural invasion. The compound appears to be rebuilding damaged tissue even as the plague destroys it. Amy looked at the scan, watching her own brain tissue flickering between destruction and repair like a strobe light. My neurons are having an argument with the plague about who gets to control my head. Document the whole fight. The breakthrough came during her sleep cycle when the monitoring equipment detected something impossible. While Amy's conscious mind rested, her subconscious biology had launched a coordinated assault on the plague that defied every principle of immune response the medical team understood. She's dreaming antibodies into existence. Dr. Nix reported to the night shift team, his compound eyes reflecting the data displays in fascination. Her brain patterns are somehow directing cellular production while she sleeps. The immune response is being orchestrated by her unconscious mind. When Amy woke, the team was buzzing with excitement. Dr. Wren showed her the overnight data, pointing to spikes in compound production that corresponded perfectly with her REM sleep cycles. Your species' dream solutions? Dr. Wren said, her aquatic features glowing with bioluminescent excitement. While your conscious mind rests, your subconscious continues fighting. It's creating targeted responses based on dream logic rather than biological programming. Amy studied the data through increasingly blurry vision. The plague was winning its war against her eyesight, but her mind was still sharp enough to understand the implications. My body is literally imagining new ways to fight while I sleep. Human stubbornness extends all the way down to the cellular level. The research team had made remarkable progress in synthesizing her biological innovations. 12 of her compounds had been successfully reproduced in laboratory conditions, and 3 showed promising results in computer simulations against plague samples. But simulation was different from reality, and they all knew it. We need live testing, Amy said during what everyone suspected might be her last coherent strategy session. My compounds work in my body because they're part of the chaos. You need to test them in chaotic conditions. Dr. Thale's translator clicked rapidly as he processed her suggestion. Commander, live testing would require exposing healthy subjects to the plague. The ethical implications are irrelevant if the plague spreads beyond containment, Amy interrupted. You have volunteers from my crew who are willing to be infected for controlled testing. Use them, test my chaos compounds in other human immune systems. The medical team exchanged glances that needed no translation. Amy was asking them to deliberately infect healthy humans with a universally fatal disease based on the hope that her impossible biology had found solutions that could be replicated. "Commander," Dr. Kess said carefully, her crystalline voice ringing with concern, "even if your compounds work in other humans, the plague affects each species differently. What saves humans might not save Corvins or Zentari." Amy smiled, though. The expression was weaker than before. "Then you'll need to find humans with different genetic backgrounds and see if the chaos scales. Test my compounds in people whose bodies might argue with them differently." She paused, gathering strength for her next words. "I'm giving you the ammunition. Now you need to figure out how to load it into different types of guns." The laboratory fell quiet except for the constant humming of life support equipment that was working harder each day to keep Amy functional. She could feel her body beginning its final decline, but her mind was still focused on the mission. 2 days, she said simply. "Maybe 3 if I'm lucky. Make them count?" The volunteers arrived at dawn, Galactic Standard Time. 5 humans from Amy's crew had offered themselves for controlled infection studies, and Amy watched from her medical chair as they underwent final preparations. Her vision was failing rapidly now, but she could still make out the determined expressions on their faces. Lieutenant Torres, Engineer Walsh, Communications Officer Kim, Medical Technician Brown, and Pilot Davis all willing to risk their lives based on nothing more than faith in her impossible biology. "The first test subject will receive Chaos 7 compound immediately after infection," Dr. Wren explained to the assembled research team. "The second will get Chaos 12 after symptoms appear. The third will receive a combination treatment based on the commander's dream state productions." Amy's voice was barely above a whisper now, but she insisted on maintaining oversight. "What about subjects 4 and 5? Dr. Thale's 4 eyes showed reluctance as he answered. "Subject 4 will receive no treatment as a control group. Subject 5 will get your latest compound, the one your body produced during yesterday's crisis event." The crisis event had been terrifying for everyone except Amy. Her blood pressure had dropped to nearly fatal levels while her body redirected all available energy toward producing a new defensive compound. For 30 minutes, the monitors had shown her dancing on the edge of death while her cells manufactured something that shouldn't have been possible to create. "Compound designation Chaos Final," Amy had named it during a moment of dark humor. "Because if this one doesn't work, we're all finished anyway." The controlled infections began with clinical precision. Each volunteer was exposed to a carefully measured dose of the quantum plague, while connected to the same type of monitoring equipment that had been tracking Amy's condition. The alien medical team worked with the efficiency of a military operation. But Amy could see the tension in their movements. Lieutenant Torres was the first to show symptoms. Within 6 hours, the familiar dark veins began appearing under her skin, and her cellular scans showed the characteristic chaos of human immune response. But something was different. The Chaos 7 compound was already circulating in her system, and her body's reaction to the plague was more organized than Amy's had been. "Her immune system is cooperating with the artificial compound," Dr. Velk observed, his crystalline body ringing with excitement. "Instead of random chaos, she's producing directed chaos. The compound is teaching her cells how to fight more efficiently." Amy watched the data streams through increasingly blurred vision, but she could still recognize the patterns. Torres's body was learning from the compound, using it as a template to organize its own chaotic responses. It was like watching a street fighter learn martial arts in the middle of a battle. Engineer Walsh showed similar results with Chaos 12, but his response was even more dramatic. The compound seemed to accelerate his immune system's learning curve, allowing his body to adapt to the plague's attacks faster than the infection could spread. "His cellular adaptation rate is 3 times faster than yours was, Commander," Dr. Nix reported. "The artificial compound is acting like a training program for his immune system." Amy nodded weakly. "My body had to figure everything out from scratch. His body is getting the answers to tests I already took." She paused, struggling to maintain focus as the plague continued its assault on her brain. "What about the combination treatment?" Communications Officer Kim had received a cocktail of Amy's dream-produced compounds, and her results were the most remarkable yet. Her body wasn't just fighting the plague, it was systematically hunting it down like a predator stalking prey. Her immune system has become aggressive, Dr. Wren reported with barely contained excitement. Instead of waiting for the plague to attack, her cells are actively seeking out infected tissue and destroying it before symptoms can develop. The control subject, medical technician Brown, was following the expected progression of untreated plague infection. His condition served as a stark reminder of what the disease did to humans without intervention, but it also provided crucial comparison data for understanding how Amy's compounds were changing the course of infection. Pilot Davis, who had received Chaos Final, was producing results that stunned even Amy. His body wasn't just fighting the plague, it was analyzing it, breaking down its molecular structure, and developing targeted responses that seemed almost intelligent in their precision. His immune system is reverse engineering the plague, Dr. Thale announced to the research team. The Chaos Final compound appears to grant enhanced analytical capabilities to human immune response. His body is essentially performing biological research on the infection while fighting it. Amy felt a strange sense of pride through the fog of her declining consciousness. Her body's final desperate creation was turning human immune systems into learning machines that could adapt to any threat in real time. It was the ultimate expression of human stubbornness translated into cellular warfare. The synthesis laboratories are working around the clock, Dr. Velk reported. We can now mass-produce 7 of your compounds with 90% effectiveness. The others require more complex conditions, but we're making progress. Amy tried to speak but found her voice failing. Dr. Wren approached the medical chair, her bioluminescent features glowing with concern. Commander, your neural activity is becoming erratic. We may be losing you soon. Amy managed to focus her remaining energy on one final communication. With tremendous effort, she whispered, "Results?" Dr. Thale understood immediately. All 4 treatment subjects are showing positive responses. The plague is being defeated in each case through different mechanisms. We have multiple working solutions. Amy's smile was barely visible, but it was there. Good. Make sure everyone knows how to make the compounds. Share everything with all species. No patents, no restrictions. Her voice faded to almost nothing. Make my death inconvenient for everyone who tries to profit from it too. The research team worked frantically over the next 18 hours, documenting every aspect of Amy's final biological innovations as her body entered its terminal phase. Even in death, she was still producing novel compounds, still fighting, still teaching the galaxy how human stubbornness could be weaponized against impossible odds. Her last coherent words, recorded by the monitoring equipment, were characteristically human in their defiance of mathematical probability. 2%. My ass, I was never good at statistics anyway. The news of Amy Reed's death traveled through the galaxy faster than the quantum plague ever had. Communication networks carried the story to every inhabited system, every research station, every medical facility that had been tracking the plague's devastating progress. But along with news of her death came something unprecedented: detailed instructions for synthesizing 17 different compounds that could defeat the supposedly unstoppable infection. Dr. Thale stood before the Galactic Medical Council 6 months after Amy's passing, delivering his final report on what had become known as the Reed Protocols. Representatives from hundreds of species filled the vast auditorium, their various forms creating a tapestry of biological diversity that Amy would have appreciated. The quantum plague has been eradicated from 47 systems using compounds derived from Commander Reed's biological innovations, Dr. Thale announced to the assembly. Her controlled death provided solutions that our combined medical knowledge could not have achieved in decades of conventional research. The statistics were staggering. The plague that had killed billions across multiple species was being systematically eliminated by treatments based on one human's refusal to die quietly. Medical facilities throughout the galaxy had retooled their production systems to manufacture the chaos compounds. and the results spoke for themselves, but the impact went far beyond simple treatment protocols. Amy's approach to biological warfare through controlled chaos had revolutionized galactic medicine. Research institutes were establishing new departments dedicated to studying what they termed human-style adaptive response. And medical schools were adding courses on weaponized biological stubbornness to their core curricula. Dr. Wren, now heading the Reed Research Institute, had become the galaxy's leading expert on chaos-based medical interventions. Her aquatic species' fluid thinking patterns proved naturally compatible with human biological anarchism, and she had developed new applications for Amy's principles that extended far beyond plague treatment. Commander Reed taught us that chaos is not the absence of order, Dr. Wren explained to a group of medical students from 12 different species. It is a different type of order that follows rules we don't yet understand. Human biology doesn't break the laws of science, it writes new laws faster than we can document them. The 5 volunteers who had survived controlled infection had become living laboratories for ongoing research. Their immune systems, enhanced by Amy's compounds, continued to evolve and adapt in ways that provided new insights into biological warfare. Lieutenant Torres had developed the ability to identify infected individuals by scent alone. Engineer Walsh's blood had become a universal treatment medium that could be used to synthesize custom plague treatments for any species. Communications. Officer Kim had perhaps the most remarkable adaptation. Her immune system had learned to communicate with itself in ways that resembled a biological internet, allowing different organs to share information about threats and coordinate responses with unprecedented efficiency. Medical researchers studying her condition referred to it as distributed biological intelligence. Pilot Davis, who had received the Chaos Final compound, had become something entirely new. His immune system could analyze unknown pathogens and develop treatments, not just for himself, but for others. He had become a living pharmaceutical laboratory capable of producing custom medicines for any biological threat. Medical technician Brown, the control subject who had received no treatment, had made a full recovery using standard Reed protocol compounds after the experimental phase ended. His case provided crucial data on treatment timing and proved that Amy's solutions worked even in advanced infections. The broader implications of Amy's legacy extended into philosophy and military strategy. The concept of making death inconvenient had been adopted by resistance movements, research teams facing impossible deadlines, and anyone confronting odds that seemed insurmountable. Human diplomatic teams reported that other species had begun approaching negotiations with new respect for humanity's capacity to find solutions through controlled chaos. The Reed effect, as it came to be known, had changed how the galaxy thought about problems that appeared unsolvable. Instead of accepting defeat when conventional methods failed, researchers began asking themselves what a dying human might try in the same situation. The results had led to breakthroughs in fields ranging from quantum physics to agricultural engineering. The memorial service for Amy Reed was held at the research station where she had died, with representatives from every species that had contributed to the plague's defeat. But instead of focusing on her death, the speakers talked about what she had taught them about living. She showed us that 2% is enough, Dr. Thale said during his memorial address. When faced with impossible odds, humans don't calculate their chances of failure. They calculate how much they can accomplish with whatever chance they have left. The final speaker was Dr. Velk, whose crystalline voice carried clearly through the station's memorial chamber. Commander Reed asked us what we would do with the rest when given a 2% chance of survival. She answered her own question by using that slim margin to purchase a future for billions of others. In doing so, she proved that mathematics is less important than determination, that statistics are meaningless when applied to species that refuse to accept mathematical limitations. Amy's personal effects had been minimal: a few photographs, some books, and a datapad containing her private logs. But her final entry, discovered after her death, had been distributed throughout the galaxy as an example of human perspective on impossible situations. Note to self, it read, humans are really bad at knowing when to quit. Thank goodness for that. Turns out I didn't need the other 98% after all. 2% was plenty to get the job done. The universe keeps trying to give us math problems, but we keep answering with stubbornness instead. So far, stubbornness is winning. Years later, when medical historians studied the quantum plague outbreak, they noted that the disease had been defeated not by superior technology or advanced scientific knowledge, but by one individual's refusal to waste her death. Amy Reed had taken a 2% chance of survival and transformed it into a 100% guarantee that her death would serve a purpose. The plague was gone, but her legacy lived on in every medical facility that stockpiled chaos compounds. Every research team that approached impossible problems with human-style determination, and every individual who faced overwhelming odds with the knowledge that 2% was more than enough. If you were stubborn about how you used it, the galaxy had learned that humans didn't just die, they negotiated the terms of their death, and somehow managed to get the universe to agree to their conditions. It was a lesson that would influence interspecies relations for generations to come. Old because one human commander had wondered what to do with the rest when given a 2% chance to survive.